What did you hear about Bobby Womack sound bad? His daughter finally put an end to the reports that he did something worse than we thought. Meet Bobby Womack, a talented singer, songwriter, and guitarist who wowed crowds for decades. But there were secrets behind his fame that stayed a secret for years. Finally, everything is going to be shown. What scandalous actions shaped the life of this famous person? Watch this video all the way to the end, because it will answer all of your problems. Early life. Bobby Womack was born in Cleveland, Ohio, USA on March 4, 1944. He was an American singer, songwriter, and guitarist. Friendly Senior and Naomi Womack gave birth to him as the third of 5 boys. The other 4 were F. Renly Jr., Curtis, Harry, and Cecil. They grew up poor in Cleveland, which was the same as growing up in the slums. They barely had enough money to eat right, and the 5 boys shared a small bed and had rats as roommates. Naomi always told Bobby that he could sing his way out of poverty if he was willing and determined to do so. I guess he did listen to her after all. Whenever he thought about his poor upbringing, he would always be thankful that his children had the things he didn't have as a child and more. Bobby and his brothers went to a Baptist church and were raised there. Their mother played the organ for the band. Their father, Friendly Sr., worked as a steelworker and also went to church part-time, where he played the guitar and sang gospel music. That's true that Bobby grew up in a Christian home and listened to church music. So why did he change that line? Watch this movie to learn more about his life. Bobby has always liked music, especially when it involved playing instruments. But he wasn't brave enough to tell his parents because they told them not to get even close to his guitar. Bobby and his brothers didn't listen, though. While their dad was gone, they would always take turns playing the guitar and singing along. When he came back, they would quickly put it back where it belonged before he came back. Their stupid plan didn't work for as long as they thought it would, which was a shame. One bad night, Bobby broke one of the strings while playing the guitar in time with the beat. From that moment on, he knew that when his father came home, he would give him the worst beating of his life. He quickly put his shoelace over the broken string because he thought it was the smartest and easiest thing to do. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on his side. When his dad got home, he saw the broken string right away and asked who had touched the guitar. Since everyone was looking at Bobby, he must have felt like the ground was going to open up and swallow him up. He had 2 choices: play the guitar or get a hot whipping from his dad. But was Bobby, who was 8 years old, being forced to play the guitar as a punishment? Most likely because his dad didn't know how good he was. Bobby recently talked about how he played the guitar with some fear and some confidence. Not a good combination? He agreed with you. He played B.B. King, James Brown, and Andre Segovia, B. King, even though one string was broken. It was easy for him to play rock and roll, jazz, country, and Western music. As his dad stood there in shock, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He was amazed that his 8-year-old son had played the guitar so well right in front of him the whole time without him knowing about Bobby's skills. He would have kept keeping the young boy from exploring his interest if he hadn't had this chance. From that point on, Senior Womack saved money and bought guitars for all 5 of his boys. Bobby played his guitar backwards all the time because he didn't know it could be restrung for a left-handed player like him. Their dad put together a church singing group for them and called it the Womack Brothers. Was Bobby's start in singing due to that little guitar? What caused the problems that surrounded him, even though he loved music? How did he become the famous person with a scandalous past? Watch out. You'll be shocked by where this goes. After meeting Sam Cooke, Bobby's gospel music career took a different turn. When Bobby was 10 years old, he and his brothers performed with his parents all over the country as the Womack brothers. His mother played the piano and his father played the guitar. He and his brothers were the stars of the group. The group was made up of family members who loved music and were working to improve their skills. Under the name Curtis Womack and the Womack Brothers, they put out a song called Buffalo Bill in 1964. After this, a lot of other songs came in as they kept going. In 1995, when they opened for the gospel group Soul Stirrers, Sam Cooke, the lead singer of the group, became interested in them. It was a truly amazing time for them. It looked like they were naturally talented and had a lot of promise. He acted as a guide for the Womack brothers and accompanied them on tours, such as a cross-country trip with the Staple Singers. It's clear that Sam Cooke had plans for the young singers at this point. But how far did he plan to take them? Could they believe he could lead them to the good life they had always dreamed of? Bobby quit school when he was 16 years old so he could focus on his music business. How sure was he that this was the right choice? Would that help him get ahead? Time will tell. But with his drive and dedication, it didn't look like it would be an impossible trip after all. When Sam Cooke started his record label, SAR Records, in the early 1960s, he signed the Womack brothers under a different name. The Valentinos, he didn't want to waste their ability, so Cooke signed them. Over time, they put out a lot of gospel songs and sang for a lot of different people. Sam Cooke turned from gospel music to pop music when they moved to Los Angeles. What did this mean for Bobby and his brothers who loved church music? Let's find out. Soon after, Sam also tried to get them to change the type of music they were making. It was hard for them to decide, but their desire to become famous made them say yes. Even though they became very popular very quickly, they had no idea what was coming next. The tragic death of Sam Cooke later crushed their dreams and left them with nothing to hold on to. Would they no longer be able to make music? Buckle up, because Bobby's story is about to go in a new direction. When they told their dad about their new plan, which was to secular music, he was very angry. Bobby is said to have said that their father told them they were knowingly following the devil's road and giving up what they had become. He didn't take the news well, just like they thought he would. They were shocked when friendly Womack kicked them out of his house the next day. They could live on their own if they were old enough to go against what he taught them. Friendly Womack was very strict about how they were raised religiously, and he didn't like it when Bobby and his brothers stopped listening to church music. The boys had gone too far, though, to care what their father thought. At the time, this caused a big fight in the family. As they started to make music professionally, their mentor Sam Cooke set up their first song, Looking for Love, with Bobby singing lead. Couldn't Hear Nobody Pray, their previous religious song, was made into a pop song. This song became a rhythm and blues hit, which got them on James Brown's tour. Was this a good sign? Bobby helped write another hit song for the Valentinos in 1964. It was called It's All Over Now. When the Rolling Stone put out a cover of this song, it became very famous. When Bobby met Sam Cooke, it changed his life and gave him hope for a successful future. He was in both the Valentinos and Sam's band. The two of them went on tours and made records together for about 6 years before Sam suddenly died in 1964. What did this mean for Bobby and his brothers? Did they no longer make music after that? There may have been problems with Bobby Womack because of this. Keep watching, because more shocking things are about to be found. What will happen to Bobby's music career after Sam Cooke's death? On December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke was shot at the Hacienda Motel in South Central Los Angeles. They were shocked by the news because it meant their music future was in danger. They were shocked that their hopes of becoming great musicians had been dashed. After the late Sam's record company, SAR Records, shut down, the Valentinos broke up. Even though it was a bad thing, this was a big moment in Bobby's career. The Womack brothers' personal and professional lives were changed by this terrible event that none of them saw coming. But there was still one thing that wasn't clear. Was Bobby sad about the death of his boss, or did he see it as a chance to finally say what he had been thinking all along? The deception that followed was really wrong, and no one saw it coming. After Sam's first funeral in Chicago, his body was brought back to Los Angeles the next day, on December 18th, for the final funeral at Mount Sinai Baptist Church in Los Angeles. Bobby was seen getting into the funeral home in Sam's car and putting on Sam's best clothes. That was a terrible way to show disrespect for his late boss. Everyone there was shocked and couldn't say anything. It was even worse when he saw Barbara, Sam's wife, holding his arm as if to show that they were dating. It seemed like a dream, but it wasn't. It happened in front of everyone, and the young Bobby got a bad name because of it. People thought that all of his acts of respect and loyalty to Sam while he was still living were fake. How did the late Sam's wife, Barbara, get involved in all of this? What was his point in pulling that stunt at the funeral? Was Bobby planning for all of this to happen? What about making music? Do not move. Don't miss what Bobby has in store next. Bobby's entanglement. Bobby's actions at Sam Cooke's funeral got a lot of attention and led to reports about his affair with Barbara, but was the affair really a secret? Bobby chose to make things legal with his lover, who was 10 years older than him, and they got married in February 1965. Bobby Womack walked into the Los Angeles studio wearing one of Sam Cooke's suits. County courthouse with his bride-to-be on February 26th, exactly 77 days after his mentor's death, to marry the dead man's wife, with the press there to record every moment. Los Angeles Sentinel said that their application was turned down because Bobby was younger than 21 and couldn't get married without his parents' permission. They didn't give up, even though they were told no. After a few days, on March 5th, just one day after Bobby's 21st birthday, they went back to the court ready to get married, and their request was granted. This horrible thing Bobby and his new wife Barbara did shows they didn't care about the late Sam Cooke. Keep an eye out for more shocking stories with Bobby's name if you think that's crazy. It looked like the mess had only just started. What could be worse than this? Are there more sins in Bobby's past than people know about? More shocking findings are being made. Watch out. Bobby's family and many other people turned away from him after he married Barbara. In his book Bobby Womack, The Midnight Mover, he wrote about how his marriage to Barbara made him less close to his family. My brothers didn't want to be around me, he wrote. They knew about the threats against me because I married Barbara. They didn't know what to do, but I was by myself without them. I was by myself and my parents were against the marriage, so I didn't have any family to support me. The shameful thing Bobby and Barbara did made Sam Cooke's family even more angry. David and Charles Cooke, Sam's brothers, were very angry and made threats against Bobby. They were even ready to hurt him physically. Bobby said that Charles Cooke told him, anyone could have married Barbara but you. A few days after the wedding, Sam cared about you. When you visit Chicago. Hey. Charles really was telling the truth. Why Bobby of all people? Bobby said Charles knew he was in trouble, even though he hadn't finished the sentence yet. He didn't want to leave things open, though. He told David and Charles that they had to finish any business they had with him by the next day. Bobby and Barbara made plans to go to Chicago even though they knew they weren't supposed to be there. They stayed at a hotel and gave the Cooke brothers their name, address, and room number. These two were sure to show up for a fight, so Barbara loaded her gun and got ready to go. Bobby got hit in the face when he opened the door for David and Bobby. Bobby got hit hard in the face by Charles, which made it bruise and swell up. But when Barbara screamed as she came out of the bathroom, she pulled the trigger, and it went off. Bobby had fired the shots without her knowing. It was clear he didn't want to be mean. Charles Cookie was later caught, but Bobby didn't want to press charges. Even though they got violent and angry at times, Bobby later said that his first relationship with Barbara was just to comfort her after her loss and be there for her so she wouldn't do something stupid. But nobody is sure how true this claim is. Was Bobby ready for more fears of violence and death because he chose to marry Barbara? The music community didn't like how he was acting, and it looked like no one was still on his side. Did he hurt his reputation with his choice? He felt bad about what he did, but he couldn't go back. More happened after he made his choice than he thought. How bad did it get? Let's find out. Unfortunately, Bobby's career took a turn for the worse when the Valentinos and SAR Records broke up. He took the brave decision to start something new in the music business by going solo in 1965. Did this mean that he was free of the ongoing scandals? Not quite. The effects of his marriage to Barbara were still clear, and they showed up when he started working on his own. A lot of people didn't want to work with him because they didn't trust him. A lot of radio stations and DJs turned him down, and some just threw away his records without giving them a second thought. Bobby didn't let these things change his mind about becoming a solo singer, though. Even though he felt very alone, his skills didn't change. Everyone could see that he was still a naturally good singer, songwriter, and musician. This gave him the drive and motivation to keep going, even if it meant working as a paid musician on small projects and with other people, which he did. It's clear that he made the right choice, and it helped him stay in the music business. Even though he wasn't totally on his own as a musician, he jumped at every chance to meet important people in the music business. This important event in his life was made possible by his friendship with the famous rhythm and blues singer Ray Charles. He made some of the best choices of his life at the time when he booked all of their tours and albums. Between 1965 and 1980, he worked on his skills and created new ones that made him more versatile as a musician. Didn't this do something good? Over time, he learned. Once he made up his mind to look for more chances to move up in the music business, he went to Memphis, a city in the southwestern part of Tennessee in the United States. Moving to this city wasn't a mistake because it was known for having lots of chances for talented musicians like Bobby. He worked hard at Chips Moman's American Studios, where he played guitar on records by Joe Texas and the Box Tops. That he found this studio was a lucky break, because it was known for making hit songs. Bobby wasn't sure because working in the studio had helped him get better and shown him new sides of music. He also played guitar on records by Aretha Franklin, such as Lady Soul. Franklin was also a big deal in soul music. You already know what that meant for Bobby's job. The meetings with these well-known people kept making things better for him. Through hard work and consistency, his job as a songwriter opened new doors for him. An boss in the music business named Wilson Pickett insisted on recording Bobby's songs after hearing them. Some of Bobby's songs, like I'm in Love, he recorded. Bobby's meeting with Pickett helped him become better known in the business and gave him more chances to do better. When that happened, Bobby became famous for both how well he could sing and write songs. Over time, Bobby Womack signed with Minute Records and made his first solo album, Fly Maine to the Moon. On this album, he covered Barry McGuire's California Dreaming. This turned out to be one of his first big hits. He kept working with Minute Records and recording while putting out other albums and songs. He worked with rock bands Sly and the Family Stone and Janis Joplin, which is not often done. His song There's a Riot Going On was on the record by the first group. He also wrote the song Trust Maine for Joplin's record. Bobby knew he couldn't stay where he was, even though he had a lot of wins. To get more attention and better chances, he had to keep going forward. He made the change and signed with United Artists. This helped him see why he should change what he was wearing and the way he was making songs. His first record with them was called Communication. It produced his first top 40 hit. That's the Way I Feel About Cha, which went to #2 on the Rhythm and Blues chart. On top of that, it got to #7 on the Billboard 100 in the spring of the early 1970s. There were some great things that were done, but things weren't always good for him during this time. He was involved in another scandal, and his marriage to Barbara was in danger. Interesting, right? What happened, and did Bobby or Barbara file for divorce? Wait and see. There will be more facts found soon. The Angry Love Triangle. By 1970, Bobby's marriage to Barbara was in trouble because his wife of 6 years had said she would file for divorce. After 6 years, did she just get tired of being married, or did she no longer love Bobby? You'll be shocked by the terrible truth. Barbara learned that Bobby, her husband, was cheating on her with Linda Cook, whom she thought was his wife, and who is 17 years old. Isn't that crazy? Bobby says Barbara walked in on him and Linda making out in a room. The angry Barbara didn't take this deception lying down, and things got trickier than they seemed. It got so bad that she hit Bobby during a heated argument without giving him a chance to explain, if he did have an answer. She was mad at him, so she pointed the gun at him. The bullet hit him in the head and left a mark. It was clear at this point that they could not stay together, because Bobby's life was in danger and bad things were going to happen. In 1971, they got a divorce and went their different ways. They had a son named Vincent Dwayne Womack when they split up. Womack is said to have said that Linda never talked to her mother again after that event as far back as he could remember. They were caught in a family web when Linda turned down a second chance to date Bobby and married Bobby's younger brother Cecil Womack. Even though there were more scandals, Bobby stayed focused on his music business. He worked hard to make a name for himself, get better, and get more fans. Not long after splitting up with Barbara, Bobby married his maid, Evelyn Evans. He was 29 years old at the time. This marriage had a lot of problems and ended quickly. Bobby Womack married Regina Banks, who was 19 years old, on December 25, 1995. She was his third wife. He had 3 kids named Truth Bobby, Bobby Truth, and Jinar. This was a happy time for the Womack family, but tragedy struck again when their first child, Truth Bobby, died after going into a coma for no clear reason at 4 months. Bobby was very affected by the death of his son, which is one reason he turned to heavy drug use. Stay tuned, because we're about to show you that part of his life. The shocking death of Truth Bobby and other problems and issues shook Bobby and Regina's marriage to the core. After that, Regina broke up with Bobby and moved to New York in the 1990s. But they got back together and married again many years later, in 2013. They did have a strong link that stood the test of time. Bobby Womack had 2 children with Jordi Laba. Their names were Corey and Jordan Womack. He also had children from valid marriages. Vince Dwayne Womack, Bobby's only child with Barbara, died in a strange way when he was only 21 years old. When Bobby Truth was 12, he was sent to a youth detention center because he was involved with gangs. Bobby was his second child with Regina. As a result of his many scandals, the popular singer had a difficult personal life and a chaotic relationship with his family. Bobby's bad luck showed up in his work and in how people saw him. His career, which had been going great before the terrible events, started to slowly slow down and weaken by the mid-1990s. But this wasn't something new for him. He already knew that the music business was changing quickly, and this was one of those times. People thought his life would finally be calm and quiet, but then he got into some legal trouble that hurt his business even more until the early 2000s. A claim was made by the High Court in London, which ruled that Bobby Womack used the song Cry Myself to Sleep on his record Resurrection in the wrong way. Someone from Liverpool named Mark Thomas wrote and sang the song. The court said Womack had taken the song, so they gave him a harsh sentence. Bobby's image and finances were hurt by the legal problem. Even though he was very successful as a musician, his work was hampered by personal problems, especially drug abuse that started in the early 1990s and 1960s, but was kept secret from the public. How much did this bother him? Wait a minute. Our plan to hide Bobby Womack's story is getting closer. Problems in your life. Substance abuse and health problems in his autobiography. The Midnight Mover. Bobby wrote about more than just the bad things that happened in his marriage to Barbara. He also wrote about his struggles with drugs and the painful events that made his addiction worse. Bobby was also honest about this and how it changed his life and work. In the late 1960s, when he was in his early 20s, he got close to Sly Stone, a big name in funk and soul music who was known for throwing wild parties with lots of drugs. This is when his problems started. Because he was friends with Stone, Bobby also did these bad things a lot of the time. This was bad for his health and family life. In his memoir, he talks about how his drug use turned into a recurring issue that hurt his health and job. He remembered that in 1994, he got a concussion from flipping over an amplifier backwards and taking a hard hit to the head. This made him temporarily blind. This happened while they were recording, and it scared everyone there. Over time, he became addicted to drugs before he could fully understand what was happening to him. He continued to suffer the terrible effects of his addiction years later. It was during that time that his younger brother Harry died suddenly. If there had been time for talking, the events leading up to Harry's death might have turned out differently, but violence took center stage. Harry's girlfriend stayed at Bobby's flat while he was there. Patricia Wilson found clothes for women in the room. She didn't know that they belonged to Bobby's lover. Patricia thought Harry was cheating on her without giving him a chance to explain, so she got angry with him. His life was lost in the process, though. Bobby was angry about this and felt responsible for his brother's death, even though he wasn't directly involved. Besides this, the death of his first boy just a few months after birth made his addiction worse and had a huge effect on him. During the year 1985, Bobby's busy traveling and other activities hurt his health. Bobby was taken to the hospital because the blood flow in his leg wasn't good enough after 14 one-night shows in a row, which seemed like a lot of work. He said that he got help for his problem during that time and was able to beat it. He also beat cancer of the prostate. However, the bad effects of his addiction stayed, and he continued to have health problems, such as colon cancer and diabetes, which he was diagnosed with in March 2012. When all of these findings came to light, everyone was shocked to learn that the famous person was going through deep pain that no one knew about. Does this mean that everyone, no matter how happy they are, has evil inside them? Bobby also told the shocking truth in January 2013 that he had trouble remembering people's names and the words to his songs. This caused a lot of controversy, but the problems went away when it was found that he had Alzheimer's disease. That cleared everything up. Bobby kept promoting his singing career, even though he was having health problems. He was seen at his last Bonnaroo Music in Tennessee show on June 14, 2014. This show was a chance to honor the famous person's contributions to the music business. Bobby Womack died at his home in Tarzana, California, 13 days after this show. He was 70 years old. His body parts were burned. His ashes were spread at the Glendale, California, Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery. Bobby Womack had an amazing life that showed how strong and determined he was to achieve despite all the odds. Now that the crimes that backed up the rumors about him are public, he will always be remembered as an icon in the music business. What do you think about this? Feel free to write what you think in the space below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. Please click on the movie that is shown on your screen before you leave.